sliding into it. Oh, makes it over the shoulder. Catch. Didi Gregorius.
Celebrating 35 years of Carolina Mudcats baseball, we continue our conversation today with a guy who's been here since day one, really, Bill Woodward, a longtime sports writer here in the area, now the official scorer at 5 County Stadium. Woodrow, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Sure, no problem.
Let me go all the way back to before the Mudcats were even here at 5 County Stadium. You were working for the News and Observer. You get the word that, hey, this team from Columbus, Georgia is moving to Zebulon. What's the initial reaction?
Well, it was kind of strange because Steve Bryant had to go around his elbow to get the team here. Originally, the city of Raleigh passed a bond referendum for $3.5 million to build a stadium where Lenovo Center is now, and the Durham Bulls were going great guns. They had been real popular in Durham, and about half of their fans came from Wake County. So Miles Wolff, who owned the Bulls, said, "This isn't going to be good for me." So he went to the winter meetings and got a rule passed that said you couldn't locate a new team within 35 miles of an existing team. So that stadium site was done, and Steve Bryant, bless his heart, went and bought a team in Greensboro so that he could have the rights to buy the team in Columbus, which was a AA team in the Southern League, and named them. They were the Columbus Astros. They were an Astros affiliate, and named them the Columbus Mudcats. And I was talking to Joe Kramer about that, and they came up with the logo, which became so popular. And when they moved here, they didn't have to change the logo. It went from the Columbus Mudcats to the Carolina Mudcats. So my story about them moving here was, my lead paragraph was, "Have logo, will travel." And we had a great artist at the paper named Pittman, Jack Pittman, and he drew a cartoon of a truck with a mudcat tail hanging out the back that ran with the story. So and Joe was great about them coming, so I was all excited because we're going to have 2 teams instead of 1, and it just worked out so well when they moved here. The only thing was they couldn't start at this stadium right away. They had to play in Wilson for a couple of months, but that was fine. That went well, and they drew pretty well in Wilson. And then they came here and opened on July 3rd, 1991.
Fitting that we're talking about this right around the 4th of July, July 3rd, the big fireworks here 35 years later. Opening night, you were here 35 years ago. What sticks out from that night where maybe we don't have everything that we have at 5 County like we do now?
Yeah, it was almost a temporary stadium then. They had box seats, but they were basically bolted down on the bleachers like the general admission seats are now. That was their box seats, and then they had the GA seats were just benches, and it wasn't nearly as big as it is now, but it was still a nice stadium, and they had great food. They had little outbuildings. They didn't have it like it is now with the concessions underneath the stadium. They had little outbuildings, and they made all their own food, and it was just a great atmosphere. But the first night was an amazing night because they didn't have a fence between the field and the parking lot. And there were thousands of fans waiting to get in with no fence. They were just kind of milling around in the parking lot. And still at 5 o'clock before the game, inspectors were still inspecting the stadium to make sure it was ready to go. And they were still bolting down seats, I think. And but they gave the okay, and everybody came in, and it started out a great run in the 90s, from 91 to the late 90s. Their crowds were really good, and merchandise was hot, and they were just, and they won championship in '95. I mean, they were really going well, and a lot of talent came through here, just a lot of talent.
Speaking of those talented guys in the early years, Pirates affiliate for I think the first 8 years of the Mudcats. Tim Wakefield comes to mind during those times. Jason Kendall comes to mind. Who sticks out for you when you cover those early Mudcat teams?
Well, Wakefield was the start. I mean, he was on the first team in '91. Great story. He was a Division II draftee, went to a Division II college, was hitting about 190 in low A, and was messing around with a knuckleball before a game, and a coach saw him and said, "Hey, can you throw that off the mound?" And he said, I guess. And he tried it, and next thing you know, he's a pitcher. And suddenly his career took off. When he came to the Mudcats, I'm not sure if that was his first or second year pitching, but it was definitely early in his pitching career. And but he won 15 games in '91.
Wow.
And he won the first game in North Carolina. Was in Wilson on a rainy Friday night in April, and he won. Pitched really well, won the game. Mudcats won the game, and he got the win. And he had a great season. And then he ended up back here in '93 after his knuckleball kind of went south, and so the Red Sox sent him down from the major leagues, and he got, apparently he told me during an interview that Phil Necro was kind of coaching him about how to get the feel for the knuckleball back, and apparently he got it back, and then he went back to the big leagues and was there to stay, and had a really nice career.
That's awesome.
Really nice career.
Thinking about those Marlins affiliates too, guys like Cabrera, Willis, those guys that came through. Did you know that Miguel Cabrera was going to be Miguel Cabrera when you saw him play here at Five County?
Yeah, he was one of those guys that you saw him and said he's going to be a big leaguer and be a star. He hit one of the first games he played here. He hit one over the scoreboard,
wow,
which was just a bomb. And I mean, he was hitting the ball, spraying it to all fields with power. You know, just really, really talented. And he and Willis went up from Double-A to the Marlins about halfway through the 2003 season, and then of course Cabrera, one of his first highlights was he hit a home run, walk-off home run in the big leagues soon after he got there, and he was phenomenal. And of course he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He'll be a first ballot inductee for sure.
I'm thinking about all those championship years, the one in '95, and then the other championship in '03. What stands out from those 2 years?
'95 was a very interesting team. You mentioned Jason Kendall, just had a phenomenal year. He was 18 when he started the season, and 19 going on in the rest of the season, but he was a Southern League MVP. Late in the season, he played the last month or so with a sore shoulder, and still managed to hit 320 or something like that for the season. But I remember after the game, everybody, of course, was, after they won the championship, everybody was celebrating, drinking champagne, drinking beer, and he wasn't old enough to drink, but that didn't stop him. He did have a couple of beers out on the deck behind the clubhouse, and I was kind of kidding him about it. And he said, "Well, don't tell anybody, but I'm going to celebrate." I said, "You're not going to hear it from me." But he was a great player. He was probably had the best season of any one player that I saw, and there were some great ones. Francisco Lindor was really good when he was here. Of course, Cabrera.
Yeah.
Joey. Oh God, I'm drawing a blank.
Weimer.
Weimer had an amazing year here. Just took off.
Weimer's an interesting one you bring up because I'm curious. We've talked about a lot of big name guys,
Yeah.
Cabrera and Lindor. Was there an under the radar guy that maybe made it to the big leagues, or that was just a really good guy to cover when you were working for the paper?
Yeah, one of the people that was here that played great was a guy named Juan Pierre. Made it to the big leagues. He was not a high draft pick. He was kind of a slap hitter that ran the bases like crazy, and probably the best leadoff hitter I ever saw.
Really?
I mean, he just was the perfect leadoff hitter. He'd get on base, he walked, then he'd steal bases, he scored runs. He just was really good, and he was a great guy. He was really fun to watch. But there were a lot of players that played here that never made it to the big leagues that were just super nice guys to interview. As a whole, I mean, I can't remember a player that was not cordial and liked to talk to you. Really, really good, and you know, that's the thing about the minor leagues, and I think the fans enjoy. They get closer to the players. The players will sign autographs more readily than big leaguers, and it's the whole atmosphere is about family and kids, and it's really a good time for fans. I just, minor league baseball to me is as good as it gets.
It's the best. There have been a lot of big events here over 35 years. Obviously the games, Barry Bonds coming here, Michael Jordan when he was with Birmingham, even the Mudcats parent clubs. I think the Pirates came here 3 times, Marlins came once, the then Indians have come, the Mariners have come. All those games that you've seen out here with these big league teams come to Five County, what sticks out?
You mentioned Jordan. Those were really interesting just because he was Michael Jordan.
Sure.
And playing baseball in the minor leagues, which was just such a weird thing. And he said he did it because of his father, who always was a big baseball fan. But there were those that said he did it because the NBA commissioner made him do it because he was gambling too much. But I'm not sure I believe that story. But nonetheless, here he was playing Double-A baseball, and he looked kind of strange. He looked like a basketball player standing out in right field with his custom Air Jordan cleats, with basically Air Jordan Nikes with cleats on the bottom. But he hit 250 that year with a couple of homers, and he was decent in the outfield. When he came here for 3 games, I think he had a couple of hits. I know the first game he had 1 hit, and the crowds were just amazing, and he was phenomenal. He wore his Carolina basketball shorts under his pants. That was his kind of his good luck superstition thing that he did, and but he made the mistake the first game of trying to sign autographs out by the right field near the visiting clubhouse, and there was just a regular chain link fence there, and the crowd got so packed in that the fence actually was starting to lean a little bit, and it got scary, and so he got worried and told everybody they had to back up or he wasn't going to sign any more autographs, because people were getting actually pushed into the fence, and it could have been dangerous. But he was really good. Yeah.
Do you think if this, obviously Jordan quit playing baseball, didn't want to cross the picket line, went back to the NBA. If the strike doesn't happen in '94, is Jordan a big leaguer?
Probably not. I think he still would have gone back to basketball.
Okay.
I mean, who knows? Because he did. It was phenomenal that he could hit 250, having not played baseball since high school, at the Double-A level, which is a very, very tough level. People always said if you could succeed at Double-A, you could succeed in the big leagues. It was the Triple-A was kind of a holding ground for older players, insurance kind of players for the big leagues, and Double-A was really where the talent was, young rising talent. And then he managed to hit 250 that year, which was amazing. But I don't know. I think basketball would have still been where he ended up.
Any other memories from those big league teams coming in that stand out? I think about Bonds or maybe the Mariners coming to play the All-Star game.
When Griffey came, that was cool. The Mariners, Steve Bryant had run a Double-A team in Wilmington for 2 years, I believe, because the Mariners had nowhere to go. So the Port City Roosters was the name of the team, and I think if they'd have built a stadium in Wilmington like he asked for, he would have had 2 teams. But Wilmington wouldn't build him a stadium, so they went away. But the Mariners played a game here on a Monday, which would have been a travel day for them, and the players weren't real happy about it. But they showed up as a favor for Steve Bryant for operating that team for 2 years, and that was a good day. I mean, that was a really good Mariners team. And the place was packed. It was for all those exhibition games. It was packed.
We've talked a lot about players, but we haven't talked a lot about the managers that have come through the history of the Mudcats, whether they've been the Mudcat managers or the opposing managers. I remember when Jordan came, Terry Francona was the manager of the Barons, and has obviously had a lot of success. Rico Bronya managed in the Southern League for a while. Any managers or good manager stories?
Well, they've had a lot of good managers. Bamberger, who was the first one in 1991, I believe his first name was George. I think that's right. But he was a really interesting guy and a great interview. And they were playing in Wilson, and he would have, after the game, he'd have 2 big beers in the clubhouse, and then he'd get 2 for the road. So I don't know how. Hopefully somebody drove him home by the time he got back to Zebulon, but. He always had his beer, and he'd have a couple of beers, and he'd really start talking. But he was a great guy, and Jeff Bannister, who had 1 big league game. He was one of those one big league game guys. Suffered a broken neck, actually, as a player, and still managed to play.
Wow!
But he was a really good manager, and then he ended up making it to the big leagues as a manager.
Same with David Bell, who managed when the Mudcats were Reds affiliate.
Yeah, and Bobby Meacham was here, he was really interesting as a player, and as a manager, he was a good manager. So they've had some good managers over the years. A-Ralt was first class. I mean, by then I was working for the team and not a reporter, but Joey Arott was really, really good.
Are you surprised, thinking back 35 years, that this has lasted for 3.5 decades?
They always had the family atmosphere, and even though it was 20 miles from Raleigh and kind of out in the middle of nowhere, they got a buzz at first for in the 90s and the early 2000s, and the fan interest was there, and I'm not at all surprised. And I think there'll be a success in Wilson. I think that'll be a good move for as far as fan support. I think Wilson will be a good place to be, but it's kind of sad to see this place go away.
For sure. As we wrap up, what's the lasting memory that you're going to take away from being around here at this place for 35 years?
Oh gosh, there's so many of them. I guess my relationship with Joe Kramer was the best thing about the whole thing. I mean, he was such a good general manager, so easy to deal with, and became a lifelong friend. We during the early days, a couple of summers in a row, my wife and I would go to the beach with he and his wife and daughters, and spend a few days at the beach at least once during the season. One time we went twice, and he was the best general manager I've ever been around, for sure. And but just everything about the place I'm gonna really miss it. I mean, I always told Joe that when I left the paper, which happened earlier than I wanted to, but it nonetheless happened. I took a buyout, but I always told Joe that I would work for the Mudcats when I got through working at the paper, and sure enough, I ended up doing it. So it's been I guess going on 40 years.
Wow.
Between covering them and then doing the general manager and doing the official score. So it's been a long time. It's been a fun run. For sure.
It's been great. Thanks for sharing some memories with us.
I appreciate it.
Bill Woodward joining us as we celebrate 35 years of Carolina Mudcats baseball.